Welcome, everybody, to the January 19th GLOBE Mission Mosquito webinar. It's on building community, and we are a community, GLOBE observers, citizen scientists, and mosquito habitat mappers. I'm joined today by a team of rock stars, and I'd like each of them to give a quick shout out on who they are and what role they have in our project.
I'll jump in and start. Hi there, I'm Dorian Janney, and I am the lifelong learner lead for the GLOBE Observer efforts, and I'm the NASA liaison to the GLOBE Mission Mosquito.
Hey, thank you, Dorian. I'm Rusty Lowe, and I am the scientist lead for the GLOBE Mission Mosquito. So happy to be here today.
And hello, my name is Liz Burke. I'm part of the education team with the Mission Mosquito.
Thank you, team. And we're welcoming Sara Kirn today. And hold on just a moment. We are starting our 58th webinar since we have become GLOBE Mission Mosquito. So, woo, 2023, here we are, 58th webinar.
That's a lot of work. That's a lot of work.
Our topics today, we have Sara Kirn, the NASA Citizen Science Strategist. We are encouraging building community and IBSS projects today. So we have some ideas coming up after Sara, and then talking about how we as a Mission Mosquito team can build a strong community, and then our next webinar. And Rusty, I'm going to turn it over to you then to talk about the student bloggers and then an introduction of Sara.
Great. We just have a little announcement here. It should be of great interest, I think, to many of you who have students that are interested in mosquitoes or anything to do with GLOBE, actually. But we also love mosquitoes. We're hoping we'll get a little bit of visibility here. But the GLOBE program has a student vlogger program. And this program, what they do is they work with students. They choose students who, apply to be part of this, and then they work with them to help them create really exciting blogs about the GLOBE science that they're doing and about where they live and some of the environmental challenges they're facing. It's been a very rewarding project, and many of the students have gone on to leverage this opportunity for other professional activities. So if you have a student, or if you are a student and this is of interest to you, you'd like to blog about your experiences, we encourage you to apply. And Cassie, will you put that in the chat?
I will.
Great. Great. So that's just an advertisement for GLOBE, but I've been seeing some of these reports by these student bloggers, and they are fantastic. They excite me. They get me wanting to do more science. And I know that it really reaches out to a lot of the young people that are in our program too. So it's pretty cool.
Thank you, Rusty.
Okay, now's the best part. So I've been asked to introduce our speaker today, Sara Kirn. Sara is a longtime educator at the Gulf of Maine Research Institute. So we share a love of Maine together. I went to...
Oh, you're muted, Rusty.
That happened. How much did you hear? Anything?
A love of.
We share a love of Maine. Yes, we share a love of Maine, where I went to undergraduate school. But she is now sharing these incredible skills that she has by serving as NASA Citizen Science Strategist. And so all of us working at NASA with citizen science programs are really benefiting from her expertise. She's helping to build bridges, helping us to collaborate well and to build products together. And so it's just been such a joy to work with her for the past couple of years. I wanted to share that her love of oceans and sailing is what first brought her to Maine. And these passions actually pulled her in. I love what she said, pulled her inland to doing graduate study in biological oceanography. And she has also shared with me that despite the fact that she's now working at NASA, she still knows a lot more about phytoplankton than she does galaxies. So that's okay. I know more about pollen grains than galaxies either. So we are in a really good company together. And she does have some really interesting passions, including gardening and having real close affinity for the the organisms that she has in containers. She really nurtures them and loves them. And that just shows a lot about her heart. And she's been sharing her science and her heart today in her presentation about NASA citizen science and building communities. So Sara, if I've misrepresented things in any way, please let me know. Otherwise, we are so glad and so happy to welcome you today.
Thank you, Rusty. It's fun to be here. And now it's close enough to the truth, and I'm so glad to be in good company with you. Anytime I'm in company with you on anything, I feel better about myself. Okay, so I am going to share my slides here. And I have about 30 minutes to present. Is that true?
Yes.
Or do you want me to go shorter? Because
Nope.
I can flex. Okay.
You can flex, but we're flexible too. So
Okay. So oops, not new share. Wait, I have to do that. I'm so much more comfortable doing. I hardly ever present. I help other people present. So let me know. Do you see my slides? Are we all good now?
Yep.
yes.
Super. So thanks for the introduction, and it's really fun to be here with you all. I'm going to give an overview of the NASA Citizen Science Program and really help you all who are closely involved in the NASA Globe Observer Mosquito Habitat Mapper project understand the context in which you're sitting. Before I begin, I do just want to note that while NASA calls the program the NASA Citizen Science Program, all these projects are open to everyone. These are not just restricted to people who are official residents or official citizens of the United States by any means. We have a lot of international participation, and we really welcome that. We really don't care who you are when you're participating, just that you're kind of putting your best science foot forward. And we actually encourage our PIs, the project leaders, to use words like volunteers and participants and colleagues when they're talking about the people who are joining their projects. But we do use that phrase citizen science when we're talking amongst each other, thinking about the whole program. So I'll be using that phrase today, but I just want to make sure you all understand that this has nothing to do with citizenship other than being a citizen of this globe that we're on. So Rusty invited me to give an overview of the Citizen Science Program, which I will do. And she also wanted me to give a little information about who I am and my path to citizen science and how I got to the NASA Citizen Science Program. So I'm going to start with that. I'm going to talk about the Citizen Science Program, and then I'm going to talk specifically about some opportunities that might be of interest to you. And I'm assuming that you all are the facilitators of citizen science participation by others. So your teachers or your otherwise kind of champions and advocates of citizen science, and you're working with other people. So I'm going to give you some information about opportunities that are available at the end. And I'm going to stop twice, and then of course at the end to have questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat, and maybe Rusty, you can help me read them and see what questions that we should address. All right, so here we go. So my working life started here at this magical place called Hurricane Island off the coast of Maine. Hurricane Island was a longtime home for a school called the Hurricane Island Outward Bound School, which was it wasn't a school that gave degrees, but it was a school that offered experiences for anyone, all ages, to be challenged and to learn about themselves through the course of those challenges. So I particularly taught courses in pulling boats, which were these little 30-foot sailboats that we rowed around if there wasn't enough wind. It was not always nice and sunny like it is in this picture. It was sometimes rainy and miserable. We went rock climbing. We did all kinds of challenging activities with an emphasis on being safe, but an emphasis too on those challenges, because the school was founded on a belief that people are capable of more than they think they are. We don't discover what we're capable of until we challenge ourselves. The other thing that was extraordinary about this place that stays with me, I hope forever, there are all kinds of people who were on that island every summer. And we were doing different jobs, and we all had different personalities, and we brought different levels of experience and different history with us. And we all found ways to work together towards a common goal. And that is the way that people can be, I believe, the most powerful, is when we get together, we have a common goal, and we're all working together with all of our different talents and assets and differences towards that goal. That's when we're the strongest and we can accomplish the most. So that was my first step in my career towards citizen science. My second step was going to graduate school and studying biological oceanography. And really, instead of being on a pulling boat floating around the Gulf of Maine or sailing around the Gulf of Maine with people, I was really looking at what was going on in the water, what was going on with the phytoplankton community, the little photosynthetic organisms that are the base of the food chain in the ocean. And I got to have my own scientific discovery moment. We were looking at a particular kind of phytoplankton, a particular species that had a dormant stage, and trying to figure out if that dormant stage was on the bottom in the winter or if it was up in the water column. And I got to go out in February and collect water samples and then learn how to process them and look for these little teeny tiny organisms. And I'd finally done all my prep work, and I was finally able to look through a microscope at my samples. Not here, this is actually on a ship, but I was in the lab by myself. Everyone else in the lab was actually at sea, so I was all by myself. And I'm starting to look through all of these samples, and I found the thing that we were looking for. And to this day, talking about it gives me chills, because it was that moment where I knew more than anyone else about this one very small question that we had about what was going on in the Gulf of Maine. But it was that moment of like, oh, this is what it means to be a scientist, is to be deep into a question so you understand why it matters, and then you get to discover something and you get to share it. So my love of science that was already kind of budding was set in stone there. So after graduate school, I started working here at the Gulf of Maine Research Institute. I'm actually in that building as I speak to you today. I'm still here. It's been 20 years now. And this is an organization, if you can see really, if you have amazing eyesight or you have a huge screen, you can see that over our door, it says Science, Education, and Community. And this is a nonprofit organization that really is committed to the Gulf of Maine, the state of Maine, the people of Maine, our region. And we do research to understand how that ocean ecosystem operates, what are the dynamics among species, how do we manage it well, and how do we harvest species that we human beings like to eat. We do education primarily with middle school students around the state, giving them those kind of exciting experiences of what science is and what scientists do, so that they also have a lifelong love of science. And we also do a lot of work with communities who are dependent on the ocean and thinking about how do we better support communities. And the work that I've been doing here for all this time has been related to citizen science. So the first job that I had here was putting together this program, Vital Signs, which was so long ago, we didn't even call it citizen science, but it really was a citizen science project. So we ended up pursuing a question around where are invasive species in the state of Maine, plants and animals, and where aren't they? And we designed this project from the beginning with scientists and teachers sitting around the table with us in our boardroom just down the hall there, trying to figure out what are the questions that we could ask that kids could be well supported in answering and contributing to, and that really connect with what a teacher needs to accomplish in the classroom. That's how we designed the project. We also made it open to anyone. So it really was a citizen science project. Anybody could participate who wanted to, although we had special supports for schools, for classrooms, for teachers and students to participate, and and scientists who are ready and interested in looking at the data. So I did that for many years, and really it felt to me a lot like that experiential education at Outward Bound, where we were doing something that mattered to the people who live here, managing stewarding our ecosystems, sharing information with people who could take action. It was really about something that mattered to us here. So I did that for a long time. And then I like to say I graduated towards developing projects with communities. So this is one of the projects that I helped to create on kind of the latest iteration or evolution of the Vital Signs program, which is now called the Ecosystem Investigation Network. And here I worked with a community that is on the coast of Maine that's worried about sea level rise and wanted to get people involved in collecting better data about storms and flooding events. So we put together this whole project that not only has people going out and making observations when the weather is bad and when the weather is nice, but also began to think about and wrestle with what does it mean? Like if we can't protect all the places that might be threatened by flooding, what are the places that matter the most and why? And it might be different for everyone, but how do we start exercising that kind of evaluation of places so we can have those conversations in the future? And then I graduated yet again. And now, as Rusty described, I support the NASA Citizen Science Program, and I do a number of things across these almost 30 projects now. We do put on a professional development series for scientists who are running citizen science projects, who want to learn kind of what are the best practices or what is the kind of best advice about how to do things from other people in the field. We also put on programs for people, scientists who aren't yet leading citizen science projects, but we want them to. We really want more people to use citizen science because we think it's a fantastic way to do science and a fantastic way to share it with people. And I also, well, I do a bunch of different things we can talk about. So this is my first place to pause. Rusty, do we have any questions in the chat that we should address, or should I dive into this introduction to the citizen science program?
No questions yet, so just go on ahead. And I think as you talk, people are going to have more questions. Thanks.
Okay, sounds good. So I'm watching the time here. I'm going to give an overview of the citizen science program with lots and lots of examples of projects. So first off, I want to say that NASA's citizen science program is kind of defined by a policy document that was created a few years ago that says that mandates that citizen science projects shall be held to the same rigorous standards as any other NASA research. So if you're participating in a NASA citizen science project, you know that your time is being well used, and the data or the effort, the contribution, whatever task it is that you're doing, is going to really be useful to science, new knowledge. And that's one of the things that sets the NASA projects aside. This is not unique to NASA projects, but all NASA projects have to be about science. And the way that we measure that is how many research publications a project produces. So that's a peer-reviewed research publication. So discoveries or findings that are significant enough that they're important to share with the rest of the scientific community and that have passed a peer review by other scientists so that they are published. The Citizen Science Program sits within NASA's Science Mission Directorate, and there are projects across all of the 5 divisions that are inside that Science Mission Directorate. So astrophysics, which is really the kind of exploration and investigation of the universe and the creation and life cycles of planets and stars. That's what astrophysics is about. There are a number of projects in astrophysics. Biological and physical sciences, which may not be exactly what you're thinking, but it's really about how do we better support life in space, human life in space. So this is everything from figuring out what food crops grow best in space and best keep astronauts healthy, to how does the human body respond to space. So it's really about life in space. How do we better support it? Of course, you all know a big part of what NASA citizen science projects, there's a lot of them in the earth science. NASA does a lot of earth science. A lot of the satellites missions that NASA launches are actually focused on Earth and how does Earth work. So there are a lot of projects around Earth. Helios, the study of the sun, and also the energy and particles that come off the sun and actually interact with us and our lives on Earth and can impact us. There are a number of projects in heliophysics. And then planetary science, which someone described to me best as the geology of other planets other than Earth. So that's in some ways, it's like the difference between oceanography and marine biology. Oceanography is looking at the whole system, right? Like astrophysics is looking at the whole universe and how does it evolve and operate. And marine biologists are looking at the biology of specific organisms. Planetary scientists are looking at the geology of specific planets. So there are projects across all of those divisions. The projects invite you to do a variety of different tasks. So just to give you a few examples, Nemo there on the upper left, that is actually, it kind of feels like a game. It's a drawing game. You look at pictures of pictures underwater and you color code things like what's a coral, what's sand, what's an algae. What you're actually doing is classifying images that are taken with this very sophisticated systems that I don't know if you've ever been over a lake or in a boat on a lake or in a pier or on a dock over a lake or the ocean, it's hard to see through the water because there's a reflection. Well, this project, they figured out how to get rid of that reflection and actually use the motion of the water to get a higher resolution picture of what's underwater. And what this team of scientists is really interested in doing is mapping life on the ocean floor. So when you're doing that coloring project, you're actually classifying images that are being used to train a neural network, which is it's a kind of artificial intelligence that will eventually be used to evaluate and track changes in coral reefs and other life living in the oceans, which is kind of amazing, right? So that's one project. You just get to go draw. There are other projects like Growing Beyond Earth, which actually is a classroom-based project where a teacher gets trained and then you get a growth box that mimics a growth box that they have on the International Space Station. And you get to do 2 experiments. One, you do an experiment that's assigned to you that's probably going to be something about which of these seed varieties grows best in this artificial environment, or what are some ways that we can grow that crop better in that artificial environment. So you're doing an assigned investigation first to give data back to this Growing Beyond Earth project, which is a project in that biological and physical sciences division. And then the second investigation is an investigation designed by the students. So you get to do a project and you can be curious while you're doing it and start developing your own questions based on the observations that you're doing. And then there are other projects like mountain rain or snow. It actually asks people to take their cell phones out and report whether it's raining or snowing where they are. So this is, computer models and sensing systems have a really hard time differentiating between snow and rain. So this team of scientists wants people's help in saying where it's raining or where it's snowing, and they're using that information to better train the models so that they can predict where the rain and snow, where it shifts from one to the other related to altitude and other climate factors. And then there's just a whole host of projects. There are all kinds of different projects with different tasks involved. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about a few of them. And first, I do want to say that different projects also require different kinds of equipment. So there are some projects that do require you to have a telescope. And if you've got a telescope and you're looking for a way to contribute to science, these are some great opportunities. And by the way, if you wish you had a telescope because that's how you want to contribute to a project, many libraries, at least in the United States, have telescopes that they lend. So you may not have to buy a fancy one just like this. You may get a much simpler one from your library, which might be a lot easier to use, but there are other ways to get around that. Most projects, you just need a cell phone and an internet connection, at least sometimes, probably not in the field. So there's, again, a variety of equipment and work that you're asked to do. Some projects, those projects that you just need a cell phone or a computer, they ask you to look at data online and do something with those images. So there's 2 examples here, and I'll talk about the one on the left first, solar jet hunters. So it turns out the sun, on the surface of the sun, there are occasionally what they call these solar jets, where energy just erupts from the surface of the sun and shoots out into space, just like you see here. So the sun, because it sends out this kind of wave of energy all over the place, but also through these jets. Scientists are trying to understand what contribution those jets have to that flux of energy that leaves the planet and comes our way and also out into the rest of the universe. So they want help. They want people to map on these pictures. You get to look at pictures from the surface of the sun, which is super cool, and indicate where those jets start and how big they get on where they end. And you will get to watch a little video, and you mark in the video. You get a training to teach you how to do this, but you can mark those solar jets and learn about solar jets and see them. They're incredible shapes and sizes and varieties. They're quite beautiful. On the right, another example of a project that has you looking at images is floating forests. So this project is actually looking at coastal kelp forests, particularly kelp forests that are near major urban areas. So scientists are interested in how those kelp forests are changing with increased impact from human beings on shore. So And you can see on this one, the bright green spot over on the right by that X is where I've marked out one of those little green clusters just like this. I've marked it so that the scientists know that it's there, and I need to mark this next one before I hit enter. But again, this project, you get trained, you understand what you have to do. You don't have to know anything beforehand, you just go online and do it. And I'm going to give you a link to all of these projects at the end, so don't worry about writing all this down. So other projects have you not looking at images necessarily, but you get to look at representations of data. So on the left here, we have Planet Hunters TESS. TESS is one of the NASA missions, and it stands for Transiting Exoplanet System Survey, I think. I'm not so sure about those last two S's, but it's all about searching for exoplanets, which are planets that are orbiting stars other than our sun. So they're not in our solar system. And the one way you do that, this transit method of finding exoplanets, is watching a star far away and watching for little dips in that star's brightness, which might indicate that there's a shadow passing before it, right? Or that there's a planet that's blocking the light as it's orbiting around that star. So this project presents all, we call these light curves, these white, that's the signal, the strength of the light coming from whatever star we're looking at here. And you're looking for these, there are these very telltale little dips in the intensity of the light coming from a star that might indicate a planet. So you learn how to mark up these graphs and submit them, which is your contribution to helping to find exoplanets. And then there's another project, Cloud Spotting on Mars. So there is a satellite that's orbiting Mars, and it's studying all kinds of things about Mars. And there is a set of sensors that are looking at Martian clouds, which are not made out of water vapor like our clouds here, but they're made out of all kinds of other crazy gases, sulfuric acid and other things. But this satellite is orbiting the planet, and it is collecting data, kind of looking forward. So the way a cloud actually shows up is in these very telltale arcs. So this project asks you to go in and mark all the arcs in the data that you can see. And again, all of these give you some training. I'm just giving you a flavor of the kind of projects, the breadth of projects and the kinds of different projects that are out there. Sungrazers project, and not all projects, by the way, were really created by scientists. The Sungrazer project was actually kind of created or started by citizen scientists, people who started getting into the online freely available NASA data sets and looking for sun-grazing comets, which is a particular kind of comet. And they started finding things that they thought might be comets and started bugging all these scientists like, hey, do you think this is a sun-grazing comet? Hey, do you think this is a sun-grazing comet? And these scientists got really excited that people were interested, and then started realizing like, whoa, if we don't bring some order to this chaos, we won't have time to actually be responsive. So they created this whole project that was really based on what these people had learned about where you go looking in the data for sun-grazing comets and how do you recognize them. So this whole project was really created by a bunch of people who got really into looking for sun-grazing comets, and then kind of they recruited the help of the scientists instead of the other way around. And this project, these people in this project, like the normal citizens around the world, there's a bunch of folks in Germany and Europe, all over the world, they're the ones who find the vast majority of comets that we find for the first time these days, which is pretty amazing, right? It's not scientists. It's the citizen scientists who are finding them. They have an incredible, incredible track record. So these projects aren't just about doing science as one person sitting in your room or going outside and collecting data and sending it in. They're actually social. There's opportunities to interact with the other people who are doing the project and the scientists who might be leading the project. So sometimes it looks like what you see on the left, where there's an online message forum. So people are leaving messages like, hey, I saw something really strange in the data. Here's a link to the thing that I was looking at. Does anyone else see this? And is it significant or is it not significant? And there might be a big discussion about that among other people who are looking, or people helping each other out. Like, here are some tips for how to get started. So there are lots of discussions, or it might look, that interaction might actually look like what you see on the right, which is a video conference call. where people actually get together and have conference calls and talk to each other, people from all over the world, to talk about the science and what they're discovering and what it means. So what does that actually look like, and where does it get you? So Backyard Worlds Planet 9 is another citizen science project, and I'm just telling you about a handful of them. Remember, there's like 30 of them. So Backyard Worlds Planet 9 is actually looking for that mysterious maybe Planet 9 in our solar system. And while they're doing that, they're also finding all these things that they call brown dwarfs, which is it's a body, an object out in the universe that is smaller than a sun but bigger than a planet. So you get to see these videos like you see on the right. And what you're looking for in this project is those things that are moving across the noise and lights of space in the background. So this is in fact a brown dwarf. It's a significant, like that's what they're looking for. So that's the point of this project. And they have they have a few weekly calls with people who are participating in the project. And certainly not like thousands and thousands of people do Backyard Worlds, and only a few dozen people join these calls. But they're the people who are really excited about it and most engaged. And they talk science, and you can go and just listen to the scientists talk, or you can listen to scientists and the citizen science talk, or you can actually be part of the conversation, and people kind of come and go. But those calls have generated an enormous number of side projects, as well as insight that has led to additional discoveries in the project. So scientists, when they're doing research, they're always looking for things that they can publish. The participation by citizen scientists in these calls with the scientists who are part of this project has led to 15 extra papers that have been co-authored by citizen scientists, including 2 that were actually led by citizen scientists, and one of them was a high school student, which is pretty amazing. So it's a project that you have to get kind of way deep into if you want to go to this level. But if you want to go to that level, you can be right there doing scientists alongside scientists. Another collaboration that I want to share with you, I think this is my second to last example. So there's the JunoCam. So JunoCam started out, it's literally a camera that has been mounted on the Juno spacecraft, which is orbiting Jupiter. And it was added on somewhat at the last minute, primarily as an outreach tool. Somebody said, hey, it would be really cool if people on Earth got to see what this orbiting satellite is seeing. Like, instead of it just being about data collection and gases and measuring this, that, and the other thing, what if we could actually get pictures? So that's what they did. And then these scientists got smart and thought, well, we can move that JunoCam around on the satellite. They have control over where it's focusing. And there's so much to see on Jupiter. I mean, it's this amazingly beautiful planet when you get up close with these swirling gases and these clouds. It's just gorgeous. Like, how do we decide what we're going to focus on? And so they decided, well, let's let people help us. So they put out a call to anyone who had a telescope to take pictures of Jupiter from Earth and look for features that were interesting that might be worth following up on. So they did that. And then they kind of created this dialogue between the scientists and these people with telescopes who are saying, like, hey, look at this spot because it might be really interesting, or hey, look at this thing, or I think this stripe looks weird, or whatever it was. And one of these projects, numerous targets that have been submitted have led to research like this spot. Clyde Foster is a gentleman with a telescope. He saw this very interesting, distinctive spot. He submitted it through the JunoCam website and said, hey, I think this would be an interesting thing to look at. The scientists looked at it and said, yeah, really would be. And it actually has been the subject of follow-up study both by JunoCam, but also by the Hubble Space Telescope, which is pretty cool. And the evolution of this particular spot, which was a storm on this kind of in the atmosphere, in that storm cloud, or those gas clouds of Jupiter, had really led to new knowledge and understanding of the convective processes on gas giants like Jupiter. All started with Clyde's spot. So projects. This is the last project I'm going to talk about, and then we have a break. So most of the projects are like what I've described. There's a research question that a scientist has that they want help answering, but sometimes there's an event that scientists want help studying. So This is a project, there was a Citizen Kate project and the 2017 total solar eclipse that was visible from the United States. There's an upcoming total solar eclipse that's going to be visible in a lot of the United States as well as other parts of the world. And so the cool thing for scientists about an eclipse is that the sun is so bright, it's hard to study because it's hard to visualize because it's just so bright, it's overwhelming. So the way scientists study it is they literally like put a spot in the sky to block out the light straight from the sun so they can look at what's happening around the sun in the corona. And an eclipse is basically a natural way of doing that very thing. So the moon blocks the bulk of the light from the sun and it lets you see the solar corona, which is something that's very useful to scientists who are trying to understand the sun. So if you are just observing an eclipse and you're in one place on Earth and the sun and the moon go overhead, you get about 2 or 3 minutes of totality when the moon is completely blocking the sun. But what they're doing is they're recruiting people and giving them the same equipment and training them all along the path of totality. So all of those people can make they can take a video basically of their moment of totality looking at the sun. And then this team is going to stitch together all those 2-minute videos into about an hour-long video of totality, which is a really rich resource for scientists who are studying the sun to use to better understand what's happening. So that project is happening and it's all around this particular event, this eclipse that's coming up in April of 2024. So that is a quick introduction to a number of awesome citizen science projects. There are easily twice as many as that, but I wanted to give you a flavor for what those are. Rusty, it looks like we have at least one question. And how are we doing on time?
We're doing great on time. Let me see if I can find any questions. I don't see any questions.
Okay.
But one of the things that I thought was so incredible in your discussion was, how the citizen scientists are connecting with the people who are running the programs, the roles that they can actually play in doing publications. And, and we have examples of this too from the Globe Observer. We have probably 5 or 6 citizen scientists and students that have worked with our project that also have been co-authors on papers. So we have these same kinds of things. And it's really exactly because of the work that Sara has been doing, communicating the best practices, that has led us to work on the development of a portal so that we can all talk about our observations and the things that we're learning when it comes to mosquitoes. So before we go into that though, does anyone have any specific questions about any of the projects that Sara has talked about? And think about that. And then while you think about that, Sara, could you talk just a little bit about, and maybe Cassie, you could pull it up, just talk a little bit about how our citizen scientists are actually featured on the NASA website, because this is something that if you get involved in doing research and you actually are part of a published paper, you too can be on the NASA website.
So I'm going there next, by the way, Rusty. So Cassie, you don't have to do anything. We're going there.
Okay. Yeah.
Before I talk about that though, and before we take any questions, I want to say I like to call Mark and I are the chief champions, the chief cheerleaders of the NASA Citizen Science Program. And we do whatever we can to support them. Yes. And I can't take any credit for what happens in these projects. They're fantastic. They're run by wonderful people. And they're run, I think, if there's one quality that's most important, I think, in a scientist to be successful leading citizen science projects, they must be a lifelong learner. Most scientists already are. They're in the habit of being surprised and learning new things. But that curiosity and openness and willingness to take ideas from anywhere because they might be interesting, and to entertain them and to chase them down and see where they go, I think is the hallmark of a great scientist. And that is what we see in these project teams across the board. They're wonderful people who are really eager. They love their science and they love what's come out of their interaction with the volunteers, and they really do see them as colleagues in these projects. Okay, so if there are no questions on projects, we'll keep cruising along. So opportunities and special resources available to you as educators that I want to make sure you know about. the first. And here we have on the left, this is what the NASA Citizen Science homepage really looks like. And the address is science.nasa.gov/citizen science. I'll show you that at the end. There's a QR code. You don't have to write it down. But this is kind of our home page. And on this home page, if you look down on the right, it says for researchers, and then it says for everyone. The first link there is a link to something called NASA Citizen Science Resources for Learners. And it is for learners, but it's really for learners who are being led by an educator, because it's really resources that might be most useful for educators who are interested in serving learners. So you can open that up. It's a PDF. It has tons of links in it. There's a table that lets you look for the grade level that you're looking for and to see which projects have resources. And then you can click on the link and go down and actually go to their project website and access the latest version of whatever educational resources that they have. And this is actually how I met Rusty, because we were working on this GLOBE Mosquito Habitat Mapper resource for higher education with a wonderful guy named Michael Goraya, who was an Einstein Fellow with NASA. And we were all working together on that project. So that there are resources, not all citizen science projects, not all the NASA citizen science projects, and definitely not all citizen science projects in the world have educational resources, but we do try to keep that up to date with the projects that do have educational resources. Rusty, do you want to say something?
No.
Okay.
Keep going. Keep
So the next thing, and this is also, so when you're back at that homepage, you see these little tiny boxes that indicate all the different projects. And there's a little box for each different project. But to understand which project is which and what happens in each of them right now, you have to actually go to each project website and figure it out. And all those websites are different. There's 30 of them now. And this program has really grown. And it's a bit tough. It's a lot of work to figure out which project is suitable to you and what you want to do. So I am really excited to be working on new summary pages for each of the projects. So I'm going to hopefully not make you too seasick and going back again. So it will say go to project website and you'll go to the real project, but there will also be a link that says go to summary or something, learn more. And you'll go to these summary pages, which will be very consistently organized with a very short overview of what is the project's kind of main purpose, a video that tells you a little bit about the project, the link to the project website, because that's where you do the science if you want to do it. And then some basic information of like, what is the task really about? What's the requirement? What kind of equipment do you need? So it'll just be a really useful tool, I think, to anyone who's kind of shopping, I call it shopping around for a project to join, or for teachers who are looking for a project to use in their programming, or as a resource for people who are looking for, like if you want to give 3 options to your students and let them go look at them, it'll be a way for them to see that. And really, I think that's going to be a game changer and be really useful. There's also, and this is what Rusty was talking about, on this website, and I'll show you again where it is, and there's a link. There are all these profiles of some of the citizen scientists and the scientists who are leading the projects, but the citizen scientists who have become co-authors on research papers. And educator to educator, because this is where I started, these profiles are a magnificent window for your students or people you want to get excited about science into the kinds of people who are lit up and pursuing science themselves. And it's a whole variety of people, right? There are people who are retired from careers in the military. There are people who are retired in careers from science. There are people who are science faculty who got their start as citizen scientist students, and it led them all the way to their career as a faculty member doing research. There's just a wonderful array of people who've been just beautifully open about what has motivated them to participate, what they get out of it. It's just a wonderful window into the human beings who are doing the citizen science. And yes, here is Mateo Kimura, who is a high school student who participated in the SEAS summer internship. And Rusty helped me with what SEAS stands for. Science exploration.
Yeah, close. It's STEM enhancement in the earth sciences.
Right. I never get that one right.
I know.
But I love SEAS. But it's this program that Rusty's been involved with and other scientists who really work with high school students. It's a really competitive program. They're extraordinary high school students, but they do research projects using the data collected by Globe Observer, and they publish them. And when they publish, they can get a profile. And that's one of his wonderful quotes from his profile.
Yeah.
If you
And
just, what?
I was going to say, just so people know where it is, can you tell us where that profile is so people can find it?
I will at the end. Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. So if you just want to understand more about the relationship between citizen science and learning, there is a fantastic free, you can read it online, you don't have to pay for it, resource called this Learning Through Citizen Science. And this is a consensus study report from the National Academy of Sciences. And if you don't know about the National Academy of Sciences and these consensus reports, you're about to get a big gift. So these are people who are like the leaders in their fields. They recruit a select group of people who are going to take on writing up one of these reports. They invite other experts in that field to tell them what they know. They read a lot of literature to understand the latest of what scientists know about that field. And then they write it up into kind of a state of the art, state of the science report that they then share with the public for free. So somebody's done all of this research for you and organized it and presented it to you. This is a wonderful resource for educators who are looking to understand the bigger picture about how do we use citizen science, what are the opportunities there, and how do we do it well, and how do we do it with being careful to create equitable learning opportunities for all students and the value of that. I can't suggest this resource, recommend this resource enough if you're an educator working in or around citizen science. If reading isn't your thing, but you really like talking to people, I invite you to think about coming to, if you have the ability, come to Phoenix, Arizona in May of 2023 for the C-Science meeting. This is a week-long meeting of the Citizen Science Association. There'll be a lot of people who are running projects or educators who are using projects in their teaching. You can use that QR code to get to the website. You can still submit a proposal to be a speaker at this event, or you can just come and join. There's many days of interesting programming and all kinds of people with a ton of experience that might complement your own, and they might be really interested in what you're learning. And that is it. So to answer Rusty's question, so this QR code and this link takes you to the NASA, like the homepage of citizen science. And on that homepage, there are those two. I'm going to scroll back through my slides and show you this. So look on the left here. That's that link and that QR code I'm going to take you back to in a minute will take you to this page. If you click on this NASA Citizen Scientists, that will take you to all the profiles of NASA citizen scientists. So this is scientists and citizen scientists involved in the NASA Citizen Science program. This is that resources for educators. There's a lot of great stuff here. Highlights, you'll see the latest news from projects, publications. You can see the whole list of publications that have been written with citizen scientists. And if you have any questions or tomorrow you think, oh, I wish I'd asked Sarah, you can shoot me an email. That's it.
Oh, that's so exciting. Thank you so much for this great overview of, I've been working with this NASA project now for, gosh, how long, Cassie? Maybe 7 years. And I don't think I don't have that 360 view, Sarah, that you have of the whole thing. So I actually learned a lot today as well about some of these other projects. And I just wanted to let people know here that if you decide to use the Mosquito Habitat Mapper tool and want to develop your own project, the tool enables you to collect the data that you need to develop a project. You can develop that project, you can run it on your own, and then you can come in and talk with us, and we can work with you to see if we can get that data, share that data, make it more available, work with you on the development of conference presentations or publications. These are some of the jobs that we have supporting our citizen science community. So some of these things that Sarah talked about are things that, if you're in a community, like there was several people this morning saying, wow, dengue is a big problem. If your community starts using our tool and collects data and comes up with data, we can use that to maybe create a model. We can use that to develop a plan for engagement of mosquito control agencies. That is publishable research. And it's a way that you can begin to collaborate even more with NASA. So,
and you're helping your project if you do that, because remember, as I said, those projects, their success is really measured by the publications. And I'm going to get something, so I remember the title. I got this great I went to a conference, science conference, and I got this golden spork as a gift. But it's the reason I have it. It's from the Community Science Exchange, which is a new publication that's being run by the American Geophysical Union, and they're looking for papers to publish from the kind of community application of science. So that the kind of project you just described, Rusty, would be a great, that would be a great place to publish.
Yeah, it would be. Right. And so Sarah can hook you up with that, or you can talk to me and I can get you involved with that organization. And, you know, we're also happy to help you with, you know, getting your paper formatted. There's a lot of little, you know, like once you do the science, you know, a lot of people just don't take that extra step to put it into publication, because it's almost like this like little magic trick you have to do, where you have to have the data, you have to have the acknowledgements, you have to have, you know, all these different pieces. And, you know, Cassie and I and our team can really help you with that if you get it to that place. And I'm working right now with 2 citizen scientists that have come up with some really interesting projects. And we're now working with them to see if we can get it into a format that they could then submit to. This one is the Journal of Remote Sensing. So yeah,
Nice.
I just love that. And I love that you have a spork. I want one.
I know, golden spork too.
A golden
It was
spork.
kind of the most coveted piece of giveaway material. That and the ice scrapers from the University of Alaska at Fairbanks.
Oh, that's a good one too. Good. Well, yeah. So anyway, I think that maybe we're ready to move on. Cassie, you had a couple things that you wanted to mention. We're only going to go till 12:15 today. So if people can stay on a little bit longer, I think Cassie wants to get us talking about how we can talk together even more and more effectively. Sarah, once again, thank you so much for the time you gave us today. I know you're very, very busy, and we just feel so honored that you were able to give us this high perspective view of what's happening with NASA citizen science.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. It was really fun. And I do have to run because we have an open office hours for anyone who has questions for Mark and me, the science team's leading project. So I've got to run, go do that. Have a great conversation. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks so much, Sarah. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Speaking of projects and research and GLOBE, I know that many of you are thinking, I have some projects started with my students, or my students are collecting some data. Is it too late to submit to the IVSS? And I'm here to tell you that no, it's not too late to do that. Projects are accepted until March 10th. And I have a link that I will put in the chat in just a moment on where you can go for more information on that. But if you're wondering, you know, can your students do the research in this short period of time? You bet they can, because there is a mosquito bundle that is available for you to look at and make some connections between the mosquito larvae that you may find and then all of these other spheres. So you can make a connection between what you find and where you found it. I created just a very short video that shows you where you can go on the GLOBE website to get some data, or to look at data to find out if there's any data in your area. And if not, how you can get started by making observations to put some data there. So this is just a real brief, no talking video. But the website below, I'm just going to GLOBE visualization, clicking on the blue bar, and presented with a map. And you pick the sphere that you're interested in, and mosquitoes are in hydrosphere. And you can take a look at habitats and photos of what observers have already uploaded. It's a filter, so then you click submit and it goes out to the GLOBE database. And those are the habitat areas that are checked. But then the next step is to pick a date range so that you can see how much data has been collected. And so right now I have 20,000 plus observation sites, not mosquito observation sites. And as you zoom in, and it takes just a little while for the database to show the information, and that's why there's a pause right here. And I'm collecting data for a date range in 2021 in North America, United States. And a calendar pops up and you can start and pick the year then. And as you zoom into a particular area, see now I went from 20,000 to 8,100. And as you zoom in, that site on the map will change also. But then you can click on any of the dots that are, in this case, brown, because I was looking for mosquito photos. And then you click on photos and you can find the habitat that was looked at. In this case, there's 2 photos of habitats for water sources and then 2 larvae. That's just a real quick rundown. So some possible IVSS example questions that you could have your kids working on are, what are the preferred habitats of specific mosquito species where you're at? How hot does it have to be before mosquito populations decline? And then is there a relationship between the land cover, land use, and the mosquito breeding sites? And this information is in the mosquito bundle. And again, I'll put the link at the end of my presentation. If you'd like to see some kind of mosquito research blogs that were written by some high school students over the past couple of years on our Mission Mosquito Cafe, Science Cafe post or our blog, I've shared their work, so that's why it has my name. But if you click on it, you can find some specific examples of how students have set up their research. And it's just a great place to go and look. It might springboard into other questions that you happen to have also. If you'd like to see what other mosquito research projects have been submitted to the IVSS in the past, I put the link here, but I'll also again put it at the end of in the chat. You can go to last year's IVSS under reports and then click on mosquitoes and apply the filter. And you'll see a thumbnail of the student work with a abstract. You can click on it and it will take you to the complete IVSS submission. Again, showing you what components it would take for you and your students to get started with that work too. I'm sharing our examples. We had 40 some kids last year submitting IVSS papers in our course that we taught. And these are for 2021, 3-star paper as by the judges, 4-star paper. We have 2-star papers. You can take a look and see what everybody did to submit and what projects look like. All right, this is the exciting part for me, and I'm really hoping I get a lot of emails, so there's a lot more community involvement. But as Sara mentioned, all the citizen science or community science projects are about working together, making connections, talking to people. And so Rusty and I have used this interface tool called Mighty Network, and we have set up a place for GLOBE Mission Mosquito observers. And so if you're an attendee at a webinar and you'd like to stay involved, send me an email that you're interested, and I'll add you to our Mission Mosquito connection spot. And on here, you can find IVSS help. You can chat with the subject matter experts that are part of our team. We post information about the webinars if you want to know what's going on. I have shared the Mission Mosquito Larva Hunters Guide and Facilitators Guide there. And speaking of, those are perfect places to go and look to find how to get data out of, if you're working with elementary or middle school kids, how you can work with a simple spreadsheet to get the data analyzed so that you can get that component into your research submission. And most importantly, you can connect with each other. So if you're looking for collaborators on a project, this is a place where you could reach out and talk to people. So this is the landing page that you would see. It's GLOBE Mission Mosquito. And I have a special place that you're also included in, and that's on student research. So I've got a place that you can go for IVSS tips. If you would like us to take a look at what your project, before you submit it, just a quick overview, I'm happy to take a look at it and provide you some comments before it goes to judging. I know that Dorian and Rusty and Liz time is a little overcommitted in a lot of areas, and so I'm not volunteering them, but if they have the time, I'm sure they would jump in and offer some suggestions, but I'm available for that. Our next webinar is an open community talking workshop, participant time. So we would really, really like you to bring your students, your student ideas for a project, so we can get your submissions into the IVSS. We think this is a super important step for kids to get involved with research, to get that lifelong interest in science, and we'll do just about anything we can to help you out to get going. So February 9th at 2 p.m. Eastern time, it's called IVSS Project Workshop, and you can register for that workshop if you become a member of our GLOBE Mission Mosquito Mighty Network. Not that you can't, but that's a plus. You can join us there too. Again, several of you have accepted invitations as panelists. If you'd like to ask a question, that's what a panelist can do. Like I said, it's that community where we can talk with each other. I'm going to drop the links that I mentioned into the chat, and then I'm going to stop talking and see what my colleagues have to add to it.
I think that was a great introduction, and we just don't have time to show you all the great aspects of this forum that we have, this Mighty Networks. But I think that if you send your email to Cassie and you get on, it will give you an opportunity to just go to one place and just say, Liz, I've got a question about the mosquito notebook. Rusty, is this really an Anopheles mosquito? Dorian, I'm thinking of doing something with lifelong learners, in my community, because dengue is a big problem in Rio de Janeiro. So this group of professionals, I guess, are here, to partner with you and work with you. And so this will make it just a whole lot easier. And hopefully there's because it's social media, so it's a little bit less formal than sending an email. I just really like it. And we've had when we work with our high school students, they are just so responsive and they feel really comfortable in this environment. And we were just thinking, well, why not the professionals we're working with? Why don't we also open it up there as well? And so this was Cassie's idea, and I think it's completely brilliant. And so I'm really hoping that we'll get to meet you and have discussions about your IVSS projects, about things you might want to do in your community as public health interventions. If you develop a lesson plan you'd like to share, this is where we'd like to do this.
And we can help you with presentations that you might be giving to other people in your community. Kind of look through them, giving you ideas of websites that you could go to for more information. But as Rusty mentioned, the Mighty Network gives you social media without all the ads and everything from like Facebook or Twitter and all that other stuff. So this is a social network of mosquito interested people and citizen scientists in general. So again, we hope that you join us there. And I put all the links if there's any questions about the links. The Mighty Network works on a web browser, and it is also an app that you can download. So if you only have a smartphone, you can still do Mighty Network if you're interested. There's no app on your computer that you'd have to download, but there would be one if you used a phone. All right, with that, I'm hoping that everybody will join us on February 9th for our IVSS project workshop. Team, any other final comments?
Well, I think that we can promise that if you join the Mighty Network, we'll send you a personal welcome, not auto-generated. It'll be from one of us. So we'd like to just begin to get to know you better and, develop these relationships that might end up supporting research in your community, supporting learning with your students. And so, so go ahead and send this to Cassie, sign up, and we will contact you. not a bot.
All right. Well, thank you all very
Being
much for
part of the
joining us.
community.
With that, everyone have a great weekend, and the webinar will be posted along with Sarah's slides sometime by the end of Friday, I'm told.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much, Cassie, and thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank
And
you.
I look forward to
Folks.
hearing from you.
Bye-bye.